I'm so glad you're here. This is a replay of a live training I did inside the OTs for Pelvic Health Facebook group with Lindsey Vestal, and I wanted to make sure that everyone gets access to it. Pelvic health is such an incredibly fulfilling specialty, and it's growing so much. I've been training OT since 2018, and my goal is to have over 10,000 OTs trained by the year 2030. I'm so glad you're here learning about this specialty. I hope that you can join us in the OTs for Pelvic Health Facebook group with me, Lindsey Vestal. I will link to the group below in the show notes and description. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OT Empower Hour. Today's topic is called When a Client Rebounds, a role play with Laura DeRosier and myself, Lindsey. And we're really excited about this one. We've never done a role play before on OT Empower Hour. And this topic of rebound, which is we're about to get into in just a moment, is a really important one for clients. And I think it's something that very often we don't explore enough as clinicians. And the reality of it is, rebound is real, and having tools and just being equipped with being able to process it, I think can really help us help our client move forward and continue to empower them. I want to briefly introduce you to my dear colleague, Laura, and then we're going to kick it off the icebreaker question that, of course, Laura, I'm gonna ask you to answer first. I'll type your answer in the comments, and then anyone joining us live, please put it in the comments, your answer. And then if you're on replay, same. You are still not off the hook for answering the icebreaker. So Laura is a OT in Ontario, that she has a private practice called Pelvic Resilience. And her private practice is dedicated to helping individuals struggling with pain and pelvic health challenges to get back to living life. Laura has leveraged her 10 plus years of experience in working in community mental health to mentor clinicians and to teach courses designed to help practitioners from a variety of disciplines and settings to build a more psychologically informed and trauma-informed practice. And I have to ad-lib this into her bio. I have the great privilege of collaborating with Laura on the very first trauma-informed pelvic health certification, which, by the way, next Tuesday, February 7th, Laura and I are having a huddle up where we are going to meet with anyone interested wanting to know more about our certification. We're going to answer all your questions, really kind of dive into more about the program. And enrollment will actually close next week. So by February 9th, we should know a little bit more about how many people in our community are really interested in rolling up their sleeves on a 6-month-long, pretty incredibly supportive certification on trauma-informed health. Laura, I'm beside myself with enthusiasm about this project.
I can't wait. I'm not going to lie. I've got a few other projects on the go, but my brain keeps wanting to come back to this one. Not that those other projects aren't great, but I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, I am so excited too. And so I'm going to drop the communication list into the comments. So if you want to join us for our huddle on February 7th, you'll get all the details there. So let's dive into the icebreaker question now. It's a way of letting us know, Laura, who is joining us, and it just kind of like boosts us up and makes us a little bit more invigorated to feel the community that I know we're surrounded by. So the question is, currently, what is your favorite season?
I would have to say, for me, with ground full of snow right now, I'm looking forward to the spring very much so.
Okay. Notice I said currently, because I think so much of it is like, I think our answer is seasonal, which is a funny thing to say. We're seasonal about a seasonal topic. But it is. If you ask me in a couple months, I'm going to have a very different answer. I am actually going to say winter right now. So I am in a similar place like you, where we had 36 inches of snow here in Arizona just about a week and a half ago. But this is new for me. Living in Paris the last 3 years, living in New York City, we never saw this amount. So we're like really doing all the things: cross country skiing, snowshoeing, sometimes just going out there and laying in it. So it's been fun. I'm sure in a month my answer is going to be different.
Right. Oh, that's awesome though. There is a lot of things you can do in the snow for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you're living where you are. This is that sense of probably renewed enthusiasm
Yeah.
left a while ago.
Yep. Ready for some sunshine and some warmth.
Cool. Well, anyone joining us, please let us know what your favorite season is. And like I said, replay when you put your answer in, it kind of lets us know the topics you're interested in. It really does help me formulate moving forward and plan for topics that you're really into, because I've been doing this for 2.5 years now, and I'm always ready for some new ideas. And I definitely want to make sure I'm leaning into ideas that you all, almost 5,000 people in our community, are interested in hearing about. All right. So without further ado, Laura, we're gonna do some fun role playing today. But let's kind of talk a little bit about what we're role playing on, which is this really important topic of rebound. How would you describe that? Like, what exactly is rebound?
Yeah, it's actually this really common thing that can happen for a lot of our clients that struggle with tension in their pelvic floor. So I think we can see this a lot with clients who have vaginismus, as well as clients with different pelvic pain conditions that have a component of this tension in their pelvic floor muscles. And a big part of the work that maybe we're doing in pelvic floor therapy is trying to find some ways, whether it's manual therapies, whether it's using the breath, whether it's other strategies, to see if we can coax those muscles to relax and let go. And there are a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but there are certainly quite a few instances that I can think of in my clients, and that I just hear other therapists kind of talking about, where maybe we're working with our clients on some of these strategies and we're making some progress, but they're also describing when they're coming back to us the next time that they've had an increase in tension after that session with us, where we're working on letting go of the pelvic floor muscles, that maybe their pain symptoms are flaring up, and they just have this rise in tension after we've found some success with letting go of the muscles. And this can also come with this sense of feeling like we've plateaued in the care that we're providing. Like, we've made a little bit of progress, but then the tension keeps kind of rebounding up. And it can be really frustrating for clients. They're wanting those muscles to relax and let go. It's interfering with their life in some way, or they probably wouldn't be coming to see us, whether it's their sexual wellness, whether it's the pain, multiple ways that it's impacting their quality of life. So they're really just wanting those muscles to let go. They're so frustrated. And so it can be really useful to have some strategies to explore that a little bit more with our clients, and work with that a little bit more in the pelvic floor therapy that we're doing with folks.
Yeah. And I have to say that I've definitely experienced that. Lexi is joining us. I'd love to hear, Lexi, if you've experienced this with your clients. And I want to add to how you so beautifully explain that to us, Laura, is that also from a clinician standpoint, it can be really frustrating, because we want to do best by our clients. We want to help them. And when they hit that plateau, very often I've gone into a tailspin in my own mind where I'm like, oh my goodness, did I go too far? Did I not do enough? What should I do? And so that's why I was really looking forward to talking about this with you today, because again, it's kind of these things we just don't talk about enough. And I don't know, I think most of us practicing at some point or another have encountered this. So let us know if you're joining us live, if this is something you can relate to, because we're going to explore this a little bit more, both this idea that a client can get very frustrated with the care we're providing, and we as clinicians are also sort of like, goodness, like what's next? How can we pivot here? What tools do we have to explore this?
Yeah, awesome. Mm-hmm.
The other thing that you and I have talked about a lot in the course of planning our certification is this idea that tension can really be looked at as a protective response to the body, right? And that the body is so wise. Our clients' bodies are so wise. Our bodies are so wise. And so sometimes this tension is there for a reason. And so I think we'll get into this as we talk more about the tools, but very often this kind of gets into maybe what I would explain as like pain science and how we're able to share this information with clients regarding it's actually a response that you can say, goodness, body, like, thank you so much for doing this for me, doing this with me. And I'm recognizing this is, you know, you are trying to help me here. Versus thinking of our body as letting us down, or even us thinking about we're letting ourselves down as clinicians, being like, oh my goodness, this client got even worse after they left my office. I feel like a fraud. Again, reminding ourselves that their body did what they could at that moment in time to protect them. Yeah. So reminding ourselves of that and then being able to communicate that. Laura, is that something that you would recommend, is like having a conversation like that with our clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important early on in care from the get-go to start talking to our clients who are struggling with tension in their pelvic floor about exploring some of the things that can contribute to tension in the pelvic floor. And when it comes to taking a trauma-informed lens with folks, we don't necessarily need to dig into the history of their trauma experiences, but it still can be helpful to talk about how our past experiences imprint on our nervous systems and our body can respond and hold on to that. And so one of the things that I'll often talk to my clients about early on in care is some of the research that's been done that looks at the pelvic floor muscles in response to stress and how they do react and tense up when folks feel threatened, right? It's really automatic. It's a protective response that we all have, just to start to get folks thinking about their bodies and their symptoms in a more curious and compassionate way, right? That these are things that your body has done in the past to protect you. And yes, so a big part of our work then is to try and find ways to help you feel safe and supported in your body so that those muscles are going to be able to let go of that protective response a little bit more readily. And so I think having those conversations early on is really important. And then as we're exploring some ways to let go of the tension, being really transparent with folks about the fact that that can feel really vulnerable and scary, so that they can be prepared for that, because it does often happen that folks describe, okay, I've had some success with kind of finding some more space in my pelvic floor muscles, but it doesn't feel comfortable. Like it's not a place my body's used to being in. It's not a sensation my body's used to experience. So having some tools to explore that vulnerability and that discomfort that comes alongside letting go of tension can be really valuable in the work that we're doing and can help us to just have a much bigger impact with folks.
And when we have those conversations with clients, one of the things that comes to mind that you and I have talked about is this idea of this transparency. And what I love to talk about is like planning what a client may do before and perhaps what a client may do after our session. And the reason I'm thinking about this is because I often talk about, like, when we give over a home exercise program to our clients, I will often say, when do you see time in your day to do this? Where can you imagine yourself doing this in the house? Because we're doing such intimate work that it's not something that a client can go on the floor and do 5 sets of clamshells, and even with, you know, their in-laws around. It's really work that's quite private and mindful. And so, you know, kind of planning that the meta that surrounds it is important. And so thinking now, extrapolating it to this in this rebound conversation, this idea that potentially saying, okay, so this happened with our session last time. We did a little bit of hands-on work, a little bit of manual therapy, and this was your experience. And so one of the things that can be helpful is planning our session around when maybe you've got a little bit of downtime afterwards, right? A little bit of time when you're not having to rush to that next activity has been helpful for my clients in the past.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think too, oftentimes when clinicians are coming with a trauma aware lens where they realize that this might be connected with that vulnerability and the sense of letting go, the temptation is often to back off, right? Okay, the client is feeling tension, feeling pain afterwards. So maybe we're not quite ready for the hands-on work yet. But when we're able to explore it curiously with them, when we have the confidence and competence to kind of explore that curiously, we've got a lot more options, and we can help put them in the driver's seat of how we want to take this. Is it important to them to keep going with the manual work? And do we need to explore those things, those alternative strategies, like looking at what we do in that manual work? Maybe it's about bringing more presence and curiosity in session instead of just kind of with less presence or mindfulness, trying to refund those muscles or whatever it might be, bringing more curiosity to that, and then bringing more strategies and curiosity to their experience after the session as well, so that we can either put a pin in it if that's what the client chooses to do, or we can lean in with a different perspective and create an environment that's workable, that we can continue on and make progress in this work with this curious, compassionate lens.
And see, this is why OTs are so awesome in this field. I mean, just hearing what you said, Laura, I think there are some practitioners, regardless of the discipline, that may say, no, this is the track, this is the trajectory. We're going to continue internal release. We can tell you've got trigger points. Let's forge forward. But what I hear you saying is, let's actually stop and have a conversation around, having the client weigh in on their plan of care. Is this something that we should continue doing, that we need to continue doing? Is this helping us? And a lot of the clients in New York City that I had the privilege to working with were very much type A's of, no, this is why we're here. And so having to stop and examine how helpful tension and pain and increased sensation is, and having them realize that there's a choice at the end of the day, that there is that choice. And when you start to give them that sense of agency, I love the ripple effect that it can happen in their life, not only with their partner or their children, but other healthcare providers, because we're really allowing them to feel like they're driving their care. And that's really the way healthcare should be. So I love that. I will mention, Laura, because I know you can't see the comments coming in. Lexi has said that sitting with the discomfort and vulnerability and just noticing what comes up, acknowledging that this is valuable information that your body is communicating, and helping the client to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so valuable to be able to, I think, notice when we're in that frustrated state and wanting to forge ahead and try different things and try and figure it out and problem solve. It can be so helpful to notice our own nervous systems and when we're going down that road, and anchor back to exactly what you're saying there around kind of leaning into it curiously with the client. Letting go of all the agenda and just being present and exploring that vulnerability a little bit more with them. And then that sort of guides us to meeting them where they are, right? Is it that perfectionist that, you know what, no, I do want to keep going down that path, but maybe they need a more gradual approach with us to continue on with the manual work, but do it in a different way that's not as about trying to coerce or force the body, and more about doing that manual work in a way that supports them with getting to know their body and befriending their body and feeling safe in their body again.
Yeah. I want to share this comment that Jess has shared with us. It says, "I love this idea of having the conversation and bringing up those mindfulness aspects and choice. I'm in acute care, and when people focus on pain, people automatically either distract them or ignore them. I always acknowledge and work with them to find their just right challenge."
Yes, awesome. I love that. And I think that too, it's their choice ultimately, right? It's our client's choice if they're going to continue down the path of trying to
Yes.
um, force their symptoms in a certain direction, and just stopping and having the conversation gives them room to consider that there are other options. There are other ways of approaching my symptoms, or other ways of relating to my symptoms. And it just plants those seeds of starting to think about it in a different way.
I love that. I love that. I want to share a super quick experience that I had. And then Laura, I'd love to kind of get into a little bit of the role
I'm a
playing with
little nervous, but yes, let's do it.
role playing is it's always interesting.
Yeah.
Keeps us on our toes.
Yeah.
So just super quick, I was speaking of winter and speaking of the snow, I was in a bit of a sledding thing where I caught some air and I landed kind of hard. This was about 2 weeks ago. So I went to an in-town physical therapist, and great experience overall. But at the very end, we were running a little bit behind, and I had to go and pick up the kiddos from school. And as I was leaving, like my purse dropped, my stuff fell out. I'm like leaving. I couldn't find my car keys. And my lovely physical therapist was like, "By the way, this may get worse before it gets better. Like you might go home tonight and feel some pain, just take care of yourself." And I couldn't absorb the information. I was in a lobby. There was other people around. Like I said, the contents of my purse had spilled out. I was late picking up my kiddos. And so I shared this with you, Laura, and we had some fun discussion around that. Can you tell me a little bit, remind me about what we were saying when I shared this with you about my experience with my PT?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because it's something we often hear from healthcare providers, massage therapists, right? You might be sore, drink lots of water, those sorts of things. But oftentimes what can be missing for folks is I think those conversations are helpful. It helps us not to kind of catastrophize, or when those flare-ups and that soreness happens, but it seems to sometimes miss the exploration as to why. Let's talk about why this is happening, which is even more powerful in terms of helping us to manage our reactions to those flare-ups when they happen, and helping us to make informed decisions about our care, like when we schedule it in, as you're talking about. If I know that I'm going to be a little bit sore afterwards, or I could have a flare-up afterwards, maybe I want to look at scheduling my appointments when I really have some capacity to engage in self-care and take care of my body and take care of my nervous system. Yeah, I think the why is something that we can add into those conversations. And even before we engage in the treatment, right? Instead of when you're rushing to get out the door and there's lots of, as you said, lots of trouble kind of even being present for that conversation or integrating the information that you're getting, let's have those conversations before the treatment about what the possible outcomes could look like.
Yeah, exactly. And hold space for some questions, because maybe I had a question, but here I am I'm not in the right environment or even temporal environment to be able to ask them. So it almost feels like this isn't important. This is something I'm just going to shrug off. I have to mention it because I have to mention it. So all of that does send signals, I think. Okay, shall we do this? Can I be the client, Laura? And will you be my occupational therapist?
Sure. Yeah. And I will say, just for everyone that's listening live, or if you're catching the replay, I'm going to ask Lindsey, my client, to engage in a little experiment with me. And so I want to invite you all to engage in that experiment also, just so that you can experience the impact that it has for you. And it could be a tool that you bring to your work with your clients. I will say it's not mine. And I'll let you know kind of where this exercise came from afterwards.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, here we go.
Hey, Lindsey, it's good to see you again.
Yeah. It's great. It's good to see you too. I had a
Yes.
little bit of trouble. Yeah, please go ahead. I'm sure I was about to answer your question.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I just wanted to check in and see how things have been and how you felt since our last session.
Yeah, it was so interesting. Like we did some hands-on work together, and initially, so I went on the subway home, and right when I sat on the seat of the subway, like I felt contact with the seat in a way I've never felt before. Like I actually, we talked about sits bones last time and kind of like how the pelvic floor muscles are in there.
Right.
And I actually felt for the first time like I wasn't sitting on a brick. Like I felt that. And then I had to go because I had a really important court date that I was heading off to. So I get to the courtroom, and Laura, I was so struck that actually during the courtroom session and after, I had more pain than I had before.
Okay.
And I started wondering, did I do something wrong? Like I was thinking about that subway seat. Should I have not sat down? My brain started going to all these places, but it was really weird because I went from feeling like quite open and like in present with my body to then feeling really tense and quite scared.
Right. Yeah. Fair. I appreciate you coming back and sharing all of that with me, Lindsay. And I'd love to just ask you a few more questions, if that's okay, just to
Sure.
make
Yeah.
sense of what that experience was like for you, so we can decide together what direction we want to take
Yeah.
with today's session. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about when you sat down on that subway and could feel that different sensation of what that felt like for you? What was that like for you? What did that um, feel like physically, emotionally?
I mean, to be honest with you, this is going to sound really weird, but it was kind of scary. Wow, this is good. This is progress. I'm feeling the seat for the first time. It's not like numb or detached, but at the same time, I was like, do I want to feel the seat? I knew it was progress, but some other part of my brain wasn't sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally fair. So it sounds like there was this combination of a sense of accomplishment. Okay, we're making progress here. Things are moving forward, but also like a little bit of vulnerability, almost like a little bit scary in terms
That's a
of,
good word for it.
and okay. So in terms of feeling like your body, didn't have the tension that it's used to having, it's unfamiliar and uncomfortable.
I was used to that, like keeping things together for me. And now all of a sudden, I wasn't sure if I could keep it together anymore.
Right. And then it sounds like, so from there you went off to the courtroom. Can you tell me a little bit about like moving into the courtroom? Where was your focus? Where was your attention? And where were you at in terms of your nervous system? I mean, we've talked a little bit about the nervous system. Where were you at in your
Well, based on what we talked about last time, like I was definitely really scared. This is a case that's very precarious, and to be honest with you, like I don't have a handle on it. I'm supporting my client the best I can, but honestly, it's ever evolving, and I'm not quite sure we're going to win this case. So I was at very high levels of tension and anticipation for what was going to happen in today's session.
right? And then you notice the tension and the pain flare up in the courtroom. Is that when it started to flare up for you again?
Is so weird. It was literally the moment I stepped foot in the courtroom.
Okay. Okay. And then emotionally, how did that feel for you when the tension flared up in the courtroom?
Well, part of it was like, oh, like this is actually what I'm used to between my sits bones, is a bit of familiar territory compared to what I was feeling when I was at the subway. But at the same time, I was like, I almost felt like I needed to kind of curl up because it was so intense and I couldn't. Here I am, having to represent my client, and that wasn't an option for me. So it was this back and forth between feeling familiar, but wondering like, was this going to become unfamiliar in the
Right.
opposite direction? Was it going to be more painful?
Right. So there's a little bit of that fear that it's escalating more than it was even before we had our last session together. And I think I heard from you, correct me if I'm wrong, when you were first sharing this experience with me, a little bit of like frustration, right? Like this, we're making progress, and then this, is that fair to say?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Okay. So I'm curious, based on some of the conversations we've been having about the pelvic floor tension, the connections with the nervous system, do you have any hypotheses or any ideas around like what might have been going on for you through that whole experience?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that maybe, like we opened up some things. And so I was feeling more of the support system that I had sitting on that subway seat, but then at the same time, that's not support I'm used to. So maybe that's where I felt a little bit unsure about this new sensation. And then I really just went right into work.
Right.
And it's a very tense case. So, I mean, my guess is, like, you told me how the nervous system is connected to feeling safe down there. And so my guess is, like, because I wasn't sure of the way I was going to be able to represent my client, that like that openness that we found, maybe did it close back up?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe a piece of the puzzle is going right into like something really intense, ramping up the tension again. I'm also wondering, Lindsey, if that vulnerability, as you described, that's a piece of the puzzle too, that isn't quite feeling as safe and comfortable for you just yet. So maybe working a little bit around that sense of safety with this new sensation that you haven't had before, right? Around finding some length in your pelvic floor muscles. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to do a little experiment with me. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Just
Yeah,
to
of course.
see if this will help us wrap our head around some of the options we could have moving forward to support you with continuing to make progress with finding that length. But it sounds like also we need to focus some attention on starting to feel safe with that letting go of tension. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to make a fist with one hand, make a really tight fist. So we've talked quite a bit about how the pelvic floor muscles really tense up when we're feeling threatened or when we're in that really go, go, go state. The pelvic floor muscles tend to really tense. And based on our past experiences too, this is a really protective response, right? To tense up. So we're going to imagine this closed fist is our pelvic floor muscles that are protecting us and keeping us safe. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is, with your other hand, staying with the experiment, try to open your fist. Try and see if you can imagine that the job of this other hand is to get that fist open. But in staying closed, this fist, our pelvic floor muscles, is trying to take care of our safety. Notice what happens as you're engaging in this experiment, in your breath and in your body, as you're trying to get that fist open.
I wasn't breathing.
Okay. All right. I'll invite you to shake that out. Shake that part of the experiment out. Okay. I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. We're going to take that fist. We're going to close it tight. It's there to protect us. Now I'm going to invite you, with your other hand, to see if we can bring a kind, loving, curious attention to that hand. And when you're ready, place that hand underneath that closed fist, just holding it lightly. Seeing if you can communicate with your touch something to the effect of "good job," or "thank you. Thank you for protecting me." Thank you for keeping me safe. I'm here for you. I'm here with you. And just being with this experiment, notice what that feels like for you in your body, in your breath, in the fist. Take a moment just to notice the impact of that compassionate hand. And when you're ready, shake it out again. You can take a couple moments to just notice that, notice the impact, the difference of those two experiences. I'm curious what that was like for you, what you noticed with those two different experiences.
So with the first one, not only did I hold my breath, but I felt so much tension in my neck and in my shoulders and in my chest. And actually, I did feel my jaw, like we talked about last time, and my pelvic floor, like get even tighter, almost like to brace an impact or something.
Right.
And then when you walked me through the second exercise, I actually dropped a tear and just felt like maybe if I hadn't rushed to that courtroom and actually like held myself instead of trying to pry myself into that next part of my day, that maybe I could have appreciated it and savored and even breathed even more and maybe even expanded our work even more. If I had that compassion for myself, because that was a really great exercise, like just thinking about how to approach and experience that tension in my body. And I think sometimes the way that my background is, I just want to pry it open. I just want to get to the other side of it. So yeah, it was a really good contrast for me.
Awesome. And I don't think you're alone in that. I think it's very human, right? And even me, I find in our work together, I want to support you with achieving your goals, right? I want to help you find a way to relax those muscles so that it's not impacting you quite so much. But maybe this is a really good reminder for us that we need to maybe shift how we're approaching this a little bit so that we can slow down a bit. And so we've got a couple of options as to how we can move forward. I really like what you're saying. I think there's so much wisdom there. Maybe a really great strategy we can experiment with is looking at how we're scheduling our appointments to make sure you've got that time and space to really sit with that new sensation and take care of your nervous system through that new experience. I think that's a fabulous idea that we can start with right away. And I want to leave some other choices up to you in terms of how we spend today. We could put a pin in some of the manual work for now, and really focus on giving you some tools and strategies to take care of your nervous system from this more compassionate lens so that you, and to manage kind of that frustration that might creep up as you ebb and flow and have flare-ups from time to time. So we could really focus our attention on caring for your nervous system and building up some strategies for you there. We could come back to the manual work also if that's really what you're wanting to do, and see if we can take just a bit of a slower approach to it, trying to bring in this gentle, compassionate hand, be a little bit more present through the experience instead of trying to force those muscles to relax. Let's take a curious approach to it and slow down and see how it's feeling for you throughout. What are you feeling like, Lindsey? Are you feeling like you want to move forward with some of that manual work today, or put a pin in it for now?
Well, I am meeting with that client after today's session. So is there any way we could do some non-hands-on work today? And then what I'll do is schedule my next appointment with you to where I have some space where I can hold myself a little bit more compassionately and kind of see how that's different than what we've been doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So today we'll just chat. We'll chat a little bit more about some of those strategies that you can care for your nervous system. Maybe see if we can build up a toolbox of things you can do when you notice those flare-ups happen.
That sounds great, Laura. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Lexi said that she really loved the closed hand experiment. She said, what a beautiful way to make something abstract more concrete and relatable for our clients, right? Because I think this idea of there even being tension in our pelvic floor is eye-opening. And again, it's as Lexi said, it's an abstract part of the body. So I mean, and I don't know about you all. I'd love to hear. Jess said her heart is so full after this role play. She's excited for the training with us both. Yeah, this more of this is in store. But I mean, I'd love to hear Jess, Lexi, anyone joining, like, if you had the profound experience I did, because that was a genuine tear that dropped down. And, of course, it was my own story of my recent back injury. And it was also just thinking about all of my past clients and how we can do so right by them and empower them so much with these simple yet, but not, what was the quote, Laura, yesterday?
Yeah.
I can see you were trying to remember it too.
Simple, but not insignificant, really impactful. Simple, but not insignificant.
We had this conversation yesterday about this quote, and I forgot it yesterday. So thank you for remembering it. That this work is simple sometimes, but definitely not insignificant. And what a beautiful shift that you were able to demonstrate for us in this role play together. So that was so much fun. Well,
I first encountered that practice, I'll say, from David Trelevan, who wrote a wonderful book about trauma-informed mindfulness practices. And so I took a course that he was a guest instructor in, and he put us through that exercise. And I had a very profound reaction to it as well. And what I noticed for me, and I still notice every time I do it, is that's protecting hand really just sort of softens when I bring that compassionate hand to it, which is really cool, right? Versus trying to pry it open and it wants to tighten up even more. It's a great analogy, and I love that practice.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for today, and for everybody who joined us. Again, if you're on replay, let us know your favorite season. And if you feel comfortable, let us know what your experience was with that amazing exercise that Laura walked us through. I'd love to see you all at our huddle on Tuesday. I just put the details in the comments. Join us for a conversation where we're going to talk a little bit more about the first ever trauma-informed pelvic health certification. Wish you all a beautiful day. Can't wait to see you same time, same place next week. And Laura, thank you so much.
Pleasure.